Raf, how are you doing, brother? How was your weekend?
Oh man, what a hectic Friday night is into Saturday. Was up pretty much all night watching minting. Caught a little bit of a lull Saturday night, and then missed this Wanko, man. What a cook for the people who minted the Wanko, and just been kind of monitoring these last 2 days. I want to say I've minted some stuff. I minted Wall Street Bets. Just been keeping my eye on runes, really. Runes and then I guess we could talk about ordinals later, but I think we have to start with runes. Bitcoin halving, right? Bitcoin halving came and went, and who would have thought Bitcoin halving and you don't even check the Bitcoin price, right? That's just the world we live in now. Now it's just all about runes. Like totally zoomed in on runes. And then just for a little bit perspective, I think, that's probably a good time to zoom out a little bit. Bitcoin halving, the block now rewards just 3 1/8 of a Bitcoin, but those miners are making a ton of money on the fees for these last few days. And just like when you think about it, like in 4 years, the Bitcoin halving will take us down to 1.56 a block as far as a Bitcoin mining reward is. And then in 8 years, you're talking about under 1 Bitcoin. So just kind of let you know how early we still are in terms of Bitcoin. And then if we want to bring it all the way back to runes, we're as early as it gets. And so whether the volume is low or high right now, I think as long as you're in on these early ones, it's going to pay off huge dividends down the road.
Yeah, I completely agree with that, Waf. And, to that point, I think I saw something that there was like 15 million transacted daily on Unisat today, maybe over the past couple of days. And like 15 million is nothing, it's a drop in the bucket compared to the Solana ecosystem. But definitely want to talk about it. I think there was a lot of lofty expectations coming up. I think part of that was definitely due to the rune hype and everyone trying to get ready for nodes. And obviously, we were hyped about it. We had our nodes up and running. Ended up that you didn't super need a node. I still found it very beneficial, honestly. I just felt like I had a little bit more control over it. Definitely saw on some platforms that I tried using, it was a little bit more expensive that way. So I was happy I did it. I feel like I learned a ton about UTXOs, about making transactions on Bitcoin as a result of going through the process of setting up a node. So I'm not disappointed, but I do think that this is the same kind of scenario and backdrop that we saw for Blast, right? It was just like, there's so much money being locked up. There's so much funds. It's all going to come out at once. Obviously, Merlin was supposed to unlock at the same time. We'll have to talk about that as well, because that's been a little bit different from people's expectations. But yeah, I'm very curious to hear how you played runes. If there's any runes that stood out to you, definitely want to share how I played runes, what stood out to me, how I'm going to play it moving forward. Hear from the audience, field any questions, but yeah, man, welcome back to another very exciting episode of BossDawgs, the first one post-halving. Raf, as always, bro, just happy to be locked in and talking to you on a Monday.
Yeah, for real. And I want to say, like, kudos to those third-party applications that were ready that we doubted. I mean, the Luminex of the world, the Genie Data, Rune Blaster. There was a lot of tools that were out there that were available for people to use to mint, to etch. So that was a huge win for these guys. I mean, Magic Eden coming on board today, quicker than expected, is also a big win. As far as like, us here in MVHQ, I mean, we had like, I want to say at least 80 people in the chat on Friday night. And shout out to the ninjas too, man. The ninjas just like absolutely killed it these past weekend. I mean, these guys have been running nonstop in their VC chat. It kind of gave me MVHQ 2021 vibes. Nonstop minting, like, so. Shout out to Trevor and the ninjas. Yeah, it was exciting. So when we first launched it, it looks like if we want to pick like winners and losers and what we were looking at early on, it seemed like the pre-runes got in on early numbers and kind of like solidified their place in the top echelon of runes. So I'm talking about the rune stones, the R6, the pups, decentralized, the Kongs came out of nowhere with number 2, kind of like solidified like their spot as a potential, upper tier 1 rune. So I think these pre-runes really did well. And then you had sort of like the mintable ones that came out early on, which it seemed early on the winner was Satoshi Nakamoto and Meme Economics. And there was also the tickers Elsa. Those seemed to be the early winners on Friday. By Saturday, we had Manko runes emerge. I think that's also looking like a winner at the moment. And then we had some sleeper ones that have emerged later. The Koala on Impala, Wall Street Bets. I think there was like a Bitcoin Pepe Matrix or something. I'm probably getting that one wrong. There was one of those that minted out today that seems to be doing well. So shout out to the developers that had the pre-runes and kind of followed through on their vision and succeeded. And then shout out to people who minted and etched these things early on, got a high number or a low number rune number to, I guess, solidify their place as one of the early ones. And now I'm just kind of sitting back to see what's happening. I kind of minted Meme Economics. I minted Satoshi early on. I threw in some mints on there was that Cat Bus one that I minted. I mean, sats were crazy on Friday. I mean, we were talking 2,000 sats in some cases, sometimes more. And now you look at sats now, we're back to, semi-bullish sats at 115 right now. So right now is a good time. If there's any ticker on your radar, you probably can get some mints in right now.
Yeah, wow. Appreciate the breakdown. And yeah, I guess to recap my experience, I think a few things. One, I do think sats, even though they were high, came in a little bit lower than expected. I think the high of it was probably around 3,000-ish sats. I mean, I know that people went all the way up to a few million sats for the actual block itself to etch in that first rune. But I think as a whole, they were a little bit lower than expected. You still had to send some pretty high UTXOs, but I was ready. I had UTXOs prepared as high as like 7,000 sats, and I thought it was going to be all out pandemonium. I was just honestly a little let down by the quality of rune project that we saw. And I think that we're still struggling to see it. And, part of it, you got to go give like just some acknowledgement to the space, right? Like, regardless of what chain it's been on, Solana, Ethereum, like we've been around now for years and years and years and years. So to come up with an original concept, fit it into this 13 character box, be ready on actual launch day and like be there with the concept, definitely a big ask for teams. But given that there were just thousands of these runes launched within the first weekend, I really only saw like 4 or 5 names that I thought were good. A lot of them, if they weren't early runes, I just would not have paid any attention to. So my mindset going into this was always just like, don't force it, play it slow. Definitely didn't, some hype stuff like the koalas on Impalas mint out in 2 blocks because people knew when it was dropping and when it was coming. But stuff like Satoshi had all night, the first night to mint it if he wanted to. Still do think something like that's going to do well long term just because of the name and because it is such an early rune. Same thing, like you said, I think the pre-runes did a phenomenal job, honestly, way better than I thought they were going to do. But yeah, I think in general, really, really high expectations, but I don't know if it's the runes themselves under delivering or if it was more so just like the projects themselves weren't as well thought out, but that's kind of in my mind. There weren't any names or any concepts that I was like, this is genius. So I personally played it pretty light, got into similar projects you did. Definitely missed out on the Wankos, pretty bummed on that, but minted some stuff early, covered my initials, and now I'm riding a pretty decent sized bag of Satoshi and meme economics.
Yeah, it's pretty much very hard to when the hype is that real, it's hard to kind of meet that hype and meet that expectation, just like a hyped ordinal drop or hyped NFT mint, kind of like similar vibes, I think. So I think the market will digest it and then it'll get bullish again. And also, 13 character token names are kind of hard to come by and hard to make good ones. So that inherently makes it, I guess, a little bit more difficult to come up with some good memes and stuff. So I think over time that'll play a little bit better. So we have these early ones, but soon we'll get to 12 characters, then 11, and eventually all the way down. And maybe we'll see the quality of the names improve over time.
Yeah, I really hope so, dude. I mean, I definitely think that there's some funny concepts that can be out there, but like, I genuinely mean, like, I have not seen a single funny runestone. I thought the stuff that was out there just honestly, like, was just kind of bad. I think the ones that did well make sense. It was the early on runes. I think some of the concepts are like kind of funny, but it's also kind of weird because it's an interesting position now where you're seeing this like pre-mining stuff, which is pretty common. A lot of projects on Solana when they'll launch, they'll leave some to themselves. But it seemed like Casey, who would think would be such a supporter of runestones, was pretty much just bashing any project that pre-mined the runes. So I'm curious to see if that's where the projects are going in the future. Definitely reminds me of during NFT days, there was kind of a free mint meta that really carried projects far. But, I think projects need to be incentivized to some extent. So it'll be interesting to see how the market digests it, what kind of mechanic develops. It's also still interesting because like BRC20 still exists, even though this was supposed to be the brand new standard. I think a lot of people are finding it's not super intuitive to use. So I'm not sure what that says for stuff like Wizard or Ordi or Pups. Like, what happens to all these BRC20s now that rune stones are supposed to be the new standard? Just a lot of stuff to think about, But to your point, where we started the episode, it's definitely imperative to zoom out. And, I'm still holding pretty much all of the runes that I minted minus the holding costs, bought some more Satoshi on the dip here. I think it's just a matter of like, what are these going to look like a few years from now or months from now and even weeks? Like, I think they're still lacking a lot of adoption. So we're still pretty early, to your point.
Yeah, we're definitely early. I mean, what I did was I kind of sold some to get back initials, take a little bit of profit, make holding it a lot easier. And the only one I bought on secondary at the moment. I mean, I've been trying to avoid secondary buys at the moment. I don't want to FOMO into anything, but I did buy some Wanko. And now I think we just kind of sit back, wait and see how the market develops. If you see the pre-rune ordinals have seemed to all taken a hit as expected, right? Because now they're pricing in the actual tokens, so it could be an opportunity there for if the ordinal has some other drop coming, you could get in on at a low point now. I think that's like a runestones went all the way down to 0.018 yesterday and rebounded to about 0.03. So it's still probably a good opportunity to still 2 more airdrops, 2 more snapshots for those. So I think people kind of oversold those. R6 also kind of went down, but there's a season 2 now, so you can still accumulate pre-runes for season 2. So there's definitely opportunities there. As long as you're aware of what's going on, I think you're ahead of the game because a lot of the information is not that easily available. Like just for, as an example, these rune doors. I don't know if you've seen those rune doors that we minted probably a couple of weeks back. But they get you like a wolf token allocation, and if you have a rune stone and a rune door, you get like a boosted allocation. So there's a whole bunch of things like that out there, and then there's a lot of these ordinal communities are getting airdropped specific tokens that their founders have minted. So there seems to be a lot of linkage between ordinals and runes, which actually gets me to my next point, which I saw earlier today, was recursive runes that are tied to ordinals. Did you see any of that come through on your Twitter feed by any chance?
Didn't see anything related to doors, no. I actually got like a weird DM from someone claiming to work from the team, but I was just like, I don't think this is real.
Oh, I meant as far as recursive ordinals. So apparently...
Oh, yeah, from blobs.
From blobs, yeah. So like your rune balance can affect, I guess, the traits of your ordinal, which I think is pretty cool that they can interact with each other. So it seems like Casey's kind of plan to like take over is working.
Dude, wow. Yeah, I mean, I really like that. Okay, sorry, Waf. We already got some questions this episode, which I love to see. So
let's go to questions then. Let's do some questions and we'll go back to some more stuff.
Hell yeah. All right. So Dop Daddy, aka Jacob himself. No, there's no charts for runes out there yet. If you're trying to look for the price action, I would just recommend if you go through Unisat, you can actually scroll through like the actual sales themselves. Keep in mind, Magic Eden went live with their marketplace a day early, which I think makes sense because I think they know that people are sitting on these rooms. They want to transact. So they're going to collect a lot of fees just by being out there earlier. I'm sure they'll add in a price chart, within the next couple of days, if I had to guess. Could be a little bit longer than that. I don't work for Magic Eden, but I don't imagine a price chart would be that hard. And Jacob sent us a screenshot of swap coming soon. I think it sounds like we're going to be able to swap runes, right? Like this is sort of the whole goal with runes is for them to be shitcoins on Bitcoin. So there's no reason to me that this should be any different from a DEX exchange for other tokens. So on Solana, you can use Jupiter, you can use Uniswap, you can swap Nub for WIF, whatever shitcoin you want to exchange for another shitcoin, you can do that. So I think that's what's going to happen on Unisat. I doubt it's going to be a swap ordinal for ordinal because it's a little bit harder to have price values locked in there, a little bit more illiquid. But yeah, to the question I posed earlier of like, what does this leave for BRC20s and runestones? The runestones are intended to be a better standard than BRC20s. Per Casey, they're a lot more elegant. It's supposed to be easier to transact, easier to find smaller denominations of them. So yeah, I mean, I think that would be super bullish ordinals if the swap is available, if it becomes easier and easier to transact. I think Magic Eden does a great job, to their credit, of buying and selling ordinals. There's obviously some front running that is involved sometimes, but like for most people, I think it's a good solution and a good user interface for the most part. So yeah, I think we'll be able to transact runes a lot more freely pretty soon. And again, all ties back to what you're saying, Maf. Just got to zoom out, give it some time. I still really believe that runes will be a great opportunity. But I was late to ordinals and still got in pretty early. This is going to take a lot more time to digest than ordinals. Like I can tell you that for sure. So, I wouldn't be surprised if we're on a 6-month learning curve for people on these and we don't see runes really get their stride for weeks or months to come.
This swap function, if it really works, it'll be interesting because I know on Stacks Layer 2, they try to swap with BRC20, but it was a little bit clunky where you had to deposit into the Layer 2. So you do the transfer inscription, deposit into the platform. So I wonder if Magic Eden will be able to allow you to trade runes like directly from your wallet as opposed to some type of deposit function first. So that's how I could potentially see it working, is that you deposit your tokens into Magic Eden and then you're able to freely swap them. But honestly, I'm not really sure. It should be interesting to see that.
Yeah, it's definitely going to be interesting to see. And I think that's why the best approach, at least from my mind, is just to play it kind of slow. Like I think it's still important to keep mind out for it. I might be taking for granted that I think people are going to know of this for now, but for whatever reason, if not, let me just drop this in the voice hangout chat. I really started using Luminex during this rune minting phase, or during the first few days, and I love the user interface. I think it's really just a great place to look for runes as they're coming out. So I've just dropped that in voice hangout chat. And I'll also drop that in the Ordinals Rune BRC20 chat. But this is honestly awesome. And you know what? I'll go a step further because we're on BossDawgs today and I haven't shared my screen yet. I'll share my screen on Luminex if you guys want to join in, just to show you what I'm looking at. I'm sure, again, most of you here have already used it. You guys are the Ordinal Savvy crew because you're tuning in Monday afternoon with us. But I do want to show you guys just Luminex if you're not as familiar, if you've just heard us talk about runes but haven't actually used it yet. It's dope. You can connect your wallet, you can mint a rune, you can etch a rune. It looks like they have a transfer function. I'm not sure to what extent these work versus don't work yet, but these are definitely things, you should be able to look into, research a little bit more on your own. But the main things I wanted to show for those watching my screen is you can go to mint runes, and these are the runes that are coming out. And again, mint does not mean like you are creating the project, you're claiming them. So I know for runes, there's new terminology, right? If you're actually like creating the collection, it's called etching. So minting is the same thing as claiming. So if you want to mint a rune as it's coming out, you can just go here to Luminex rune/mint. You can see the different projects, and it's just a really nice user interface. You can see what's almost minted out. You can see the holders at a glance. You can see the pendings that are coming in, and they just have them in these nice, easy to follow bars right here. So I think that's pretty fun. And I like as well that you can drill it down into blocks. So if you're someone who's going to be spending all day monitoring the page, you can break down into that 10 block or that 3 block, and it'll show you, cool, here are the runes that are coming in during the blocks as they're minting. And then additionally, you can go over to the alpha tab here, and this is just another visualization of what's going on in the mint runes tab. So it's the same information. You have 1 day, 10 blocks, 3 blocks, 1 block, but you can break it down and be like, cool, this block is being minted right here as well as pending. 3 blocks, it's still all this rune. Break it out into the 10 blocks. You know what? This might just be delayed here. That's pretty funny, unless no one's minting blocks. No, I guess that's the case. But yeah, it's pretty cool. You can see the different tickers that are out there. I guess the Z is really the only thing going on in these blocks. But these still must have, within the last 10 blocks, had a few mints to populate here. So yeah, this is kind of what I was looking at all day during the runes. Like I said, I really only jumped on some of the earliest. So I think maybe like 10 to 20 runes I was all over. And then waiting for better memes to come out. But I mean, yeah, you guys can see here, like, I genuinely think the memes kind of suck so far. Like, so many of them are pretty derivative. Just a lot of like ETH and Solana memes that have found their way over here. I don't really think they're going to hit as hard. Stuff like Pepe Toshi Nakamoto, I'm not sure how that's going to do when like the full name that this is a derivative of isn't doing great. It's not doing bad, but it's not doing great. Dope grandma coin, like, you know, some of this stuff is maybe funny, but I just don't know. And stuff like this, Elizabeth Horn, that's just really a slow, you know, catch up from Solana stuff. Like, this kind of meme was popular 2 months ago on Solana. So I'm expecting to just see a little bit more high effort meme before I get excited about any runes coming out the pipeline. But I still think it's a good time to familiarize yourself with stuff like Luminex, pay attention, and wait for, you know, when a good meme does come out, you'll hopefully catch it, and hopefully it'll stand out for being one of the few good memes on runes.
Yeah, I agree with that. I mean, I think, you know, we haven't seen any rune come out that has any type of real utility yet. It's just all memes. So I would just stick to what looks like people have chosen, and keep your eye out on, I want to say, lower numbered mints that haven't minted out yet, and then look to potentially mint them when there's low sats. Luminex also has like a alpha tab that you can look at what's kind of like in the mempool and what's being minted and what's coming up and what's being deployed. So that's a pretty cool tab. And then my final note is on Genie data. You can mint up to like 1,000 mints on that. Like, Luminex kind of limits the repeat mint functionality to 20, whereas Genie data will let you do up to 1,000. So if there's a hot mint, you might want to have both of those things up if you want to really send it. So I would just say those few things to add on. Is there any, I guess, ones on secondary you're looking to buy, or are you just in the holding pattern for now?
I'm pretty much in the holding pattern. I did buy some more Satoshi Nakamoto. I mean, I think that's probably like as easy as it gets, and it's also just like good exposure to runes in general. So I'm gonna just keep buying the mint or the dip. I do think that the market cap is kind of high. Like, I think I calculated it at 100 mil at one point. For those of you who don't know, like, you can just at any point figure out the rough estimate market cap of these runes. I'm not sure if Magic Eden has that on their site yet, but pretty much just look at what the cheapest price of the rune is in the collection, multiply it by supply, and there you go. That's your napkin math market calculation. It's obviously not that exact calculation. I mean, that's how they would calculate it, but, you know, there's other factors at play in terms of, it's not like a billion market cap doesn't mean $1 billion are invested or that's the full value, because, you know, prices are subject to change. The whole pile's not liquid, but for napkin cap math, target market cap evaluations, that's what I've been doing. So looking at something like Satoshi Nakamoto, that's the founder of Bitcoin, for those of you who are unaware, and it was like the first public meme that you were able to mint, or first public coin. I think all of the other ones up until that point were pre-mined out. Those are going to be airdropped to the community. So stuff like Leonidas's Dog to the Moon coin, the Arsic Genesis rune, those were all 100% pre-mined. I think the Satoshi one was like 20% pre-mined, so that does give me some pause, because, you know, someone's going to dump a fucking bag on the market. But it's a good name. I can't fade that. That's the founder of Bitcoin. Runes are so early. It's only 100 mil market cap. So I think when people are like looking to get into runes and the market cap or the marketplaces are a little bit more established, I just don't see how there's not going to be a big amount of people looking to hold that. Like, huge number of holders, 7th rune ever, first one with the ability to be mined by the public. Like, I just think it's an easy play, honestly.
Yeah, I like that. So I use OKX for the market cap. That's probably like an easier way to look at it. So that link I sent earlier in VC chat will help you look at market cap a lot quicker. I also agree, like sometimes the most obvious play, it winds up being the most obvious play. So Satoshi Nakamoto is definitely an obvious play. With 20% pre-mine, like, I mean, kudos and shout out to that person who etched it, basically etched himself $20 million and probably cost them what, 1 or 2 Bitcoin to deploy that. So some mega brain move there, I would say. Yeah, I think this leads us to what we've been talking about before, where the money flow would go into runes. It seems like the money flow is more on the minting of the runes, and I think eventually it's going to flow back into ordinals. And one of the things I'm looking to do is look at some of the collections that were kind of taken out to the woodshed a bit and got beaten down, and kind of get in on low prices before the herd comes back to ordinals. So like what I'm looking at recently is I'm looking at NatCats again. They're all the way down to 0.027. I think that's a good buy. And, I'm not really looking to buy any of the pre-runes at the moment. If you notice, Quantum Cats and OMB have kind of really taken off. Those are like 2 collections that were not really associated with any type of rune. So there was no sell the news moment for those 2. So I think those look like they're going to be kind of like trending up and up, I think. And I think Pizza Ninjas at 0.1 is also looking really good with all the alpha they've been dropping, and also there's a token that's going to be dropped there as well. So I think that's also a good play. So it wasn't a pre-rune, but now it's kind of a pre-rune now. So it's sort of like in between. So it kind of like you got to be a little bit, I guess, leery of that. Like it could potentially dump after the token drop. But those are the ones I'm kind of looking at. Bitcoin Frogs 0.088. I think that's still undervalued. There was no talk of any type of runes for Bitcoin Frogs, so it seems to stay as a kind of like art project or no project only. So it's not kind of I want to say diluted with a token. So that's another one I'm looking at. That's kind of it on the radar right now for ordinals. I think those are kind of like it's kind of like more of the main collections, the ones that are a little bit beaten down, waiting for some of the RSIC coins to kind of go up in price a little bit more. Rune Pups, Magic Internet Money I'm waiting on because the Wizards have that conversion coming up pretty soon. That's what's on my radar. What about you, Russ?
Appreciate it, WAF. Yeah, great breakdown, man. And like for sure, I think we're going to see money rotating into ordinals sooner than we think, for a few different reasons, right? As mentioned earlier, I think people were overestimating sats going into it. It was great that we all came in prepared, but with gas a lot lower, these ordinal collections aren't going to fall down as much. And to your point, the pre-rune collections that everyone was holding until the halving so they could get their airdrops, it's like, so much of that liquidity is going to be offloaded now, right? Like the Leonidas runestones, there's 100,000 supply. Or was it 40,000? I think it's 100,000, right? I don't want to misquote. Keep me honest there, Waf.
Yeah. I think it's like 110,000 or something like that.
Yeah, so it's like 110,000, and at the time, the peak leading up to it, they went to like 0.1, 0.08. So a crazy amount of Bitcoin just tied up into these runestones, and eventually people are going to be selling them off. And while some of that liquidity is going to go into runes, I think some of that money is going to come back out and go back into ordinals because people like the vibes a little bit. It's the same thing like when we traded NFTs. There were shit coins that popped up and all that stuff, but so much money went into the Bored Apes, into Azuki, all of those big projects that people still want to rep and be a part of. And throughout all of the runes, even the people talking about runes and being like, I'm going to be in runes, most of them were repping ordinal PFPs. So I still think we're in this Bitcoin ecosystem. I do think part of it still seems a bit like forced, where people who are in ordinals and like love it, they're just like more aggressive than usual. Like I love ordinals and I'm still super, super bullish. But I do think leading up to runes, there was almost like this extra layer of like, no one is prepared for this. Like this is the ticket to generational wealth. And now it's hard to sort of backtrack on that and be like, well, we're still bullish, but we're still bullish. So like I think it makes sense that as that liquidity clears out from runes and pre-runes, a lot of it's going to go back into those ordinal projects. Great call with the Nat Cats. They are basically at the spreadsheet prices at this point, still holding most of mine. So, hopefully that comes back up. But you pointed out, I think Quantum Cats, dude, that's the one that I'm looking to buy if my funds ever get unlocked from Merlin Seal, which we'll talk about next. But dude, Quantum Cats are holding so strong when sats were crazy. And the things that OMBs and Quantum Cats have in common is they're just huge OG ordinal collections. And Quantum Cats are going to be the key to getting Taproot Wizards. At least that's what we've been told. Like, if you look at Quantum Cats, the floor is so thin, and I just keep looking at it, and I'm like, dude, I need to get a Quantum Cat. So I think that's next up on my list, WAF, is just going for the Quantum Cat. I think it's great with the thin floor. There could be some speculation on a Runestone or something like that, but I think that's where the price action is dictated. That's the strong project right now.
Yeah, I'm with you right there, man. It looks really good. It's funny how just a couple weeks, how things seem to shake out and play. Like look at Node Monkeys now, 0.379. That's like another one I forgot to mention. I think that one they've been sitting quiet. Nothing's been kind of going on. There's been no news. I don't mind a Node Monkey at 0.379 either, but I don't have a Quantum Cat. I think if I had to add one between those three, a Quantum Cat, a Node Monkey, or a OMB, I'd probably go with the Quantum Cat first because I think if and when the Taproot Wizards come out, like you want to have a Quantum Cat to at least have a shot at it. So that's what I would say.
Yeah, I agree with that, WAF, 100%. And, another name that's a little bit under the radar, in my opinion, is Honey Badgers. I mean, those were struggling for a long time to break 0.01. They did. Last time I checked, they're like closing in on 0.03. And this might have something to do with the Node Monkeys. There's a bit of FUD around them. And I personally don't have a dog in this fight. And, I apologize if Mr. Silva's listening at home because he always wants me to FUD bags. He has not yet purchased, so he can get a better entry. And I know he's got a Node Monkey out there, which I still think is a great play, Mr. Silva. So don't get too upset on this one. But there has been a little bit of a debate between the two communities because people are like, oh man, Honey Badgers have a lower inscription than Node Monkeys. So weren't Honey Badgers first? And the whole thing is pretty funny, right? Because like you can look at inscription numbers. I think Node Monkeys minted out before Honey Badgers did, so like they have a tighter inscription range, even if Honey Badgers started first. I'm pretty sure Node Monkeys only claim that they were the first 10K PFP. Again, I don't have a dog in either fight. I don't own either asset, so like this is me just kind of recapping what I've seen online. But yeah, I think that might be part of it, is that there's maybe some debate as to what was the first, what wasn't. If you go and look at the inscriptions by number, there were plenty of projects that existed before Honey Badgers or Node Monkeys. So I've always found that to be a funny part. But I think they're still great buys. Like if you just look at the rare sales on Node Monkeys, it is insane. And, we've talked in other episodes of BossDawgs. That's just like such a bullish conviction symbol for me. The fact that some of the hoodies on Node Monkeys, I don't know, a month ago were selling for $1 million. I mean, come on, that's like so early. That's early CryptoPunk vibes to a T. So I definitely think Node Monkeys are a buy if they keep coming down. But
yeah, also, I totally agree.
Honey Badgers would be a good buy too.
So Honey Badgers, right? You see that run up? It's pretty wild run up since the Puppets founder kind of flooded Node Monkeys. It said Honey Badgers was kind of before you guys. So, and then the price really shot up. The floor is pretty thin. I am a little bit leery on Honey Badgers in respect to like the total volume that it's ever traded. It's only traded 60 Bitcoin total volume. So I wouldn't want to buy at the all-time highs. I'd kind of wait till this thing bleeds down and then buy if you're looking to get in. This is like one of the early ones we called as one that gave the Discord's pretty good. There's a lot of giveaways. It was like a cheap entry to get in on some whitelist. So this was one of the ones that we talked about when it was probably under 0.01. So again, if you bought this, if you accumulated some, congratulations. I think this is looking like a local top at the moment. But if these older collections do kind of resurrect themselves, another one that I would say is kind of like beaten down, similar to like a Honey Badger, would be Doge Punks. Doge Punks is like another one of these OG projects. It's a 10K collection, and its range is from the 300,000s to the 600,000s, and it's trading at 0.0024. So it's absolutely dirt cheap. Full 10K collection. Also has a pretty good community. A lot of giveaways in their Discord too. Seems to be not getting much love. I could see this one 10xing, like no problem.
Yeah, you heard it here first, Waff, and I know you're always one to call your shot, and it's usually a pretty high hit rate. So there you go, folks. Check it out.
Doge Funks. Yeah, don't front run me.
I'm watching some people talk in the chat. I'm seeing Blessed here. And big shout out to Blessed. He was helping out a ton of people with Bitcoin and Emporium recently, and also was helping out people set up their Bitcoin nodes leading up to it. Big shout out to Chelsea as well. But yeah, I see Blessed went the hardest on Satoshi, and love where your head's at there, Blessed. I don't know if you're listening in or not, but love to see it, dude. Definitely think that that's a conviction play for sure. Definitely something that I'm going to continue to buy the dip on. I mean, it's just such a good name with so many holders. Like, I just think that's the easiest exposure to runestones, at least right now. Like, if you're just on the sideline, you're looking to get into runes, I do think Satoshi's going to be a hard one to fade. I think unless something comes crazy out of there and the creators turned out to be serial ruggers or something like that, I think it would be hard to fade it. Just to take a step back on runes for a sec, though, I wanted to ask you, right? Like, leading up to it, we had Trevor come in here and talk to us. He was saying the first 100 runes, the first 200 runes, first 1,000 runes, all big premiums. Like, what are your thoughts with rune numbers and premiums? Does it matter at all? Is there a cutoff?
I think ultimately, yes, there is a cutoff. I know people are kind of racing to etch now, so you could like etch one of the first 10,000. It's probably a little bit too forward thinking for me at the moment. My attention is on top 100, and so like as far as like what I'm looking at now, I think Short the World is like ticker. It's like the 28th ticker. It's got a pretty long while to mint out. That's one. When sats are low, I'm gonna throw some mints at. I think Trevor came in like very over prepared, and you know what? That's to his credit. It's better to be prepared to take advantage of opportunity than to be underprepared. So that kind of helped me prepare myself. Just kind of seeing what everybody was doing, kind of forced me to kind of like up my game. And you know what? I was over ready. I think he was also over ready, but he minted. I know he minted pretty much like everything. So he had that. He did mention he had a spray and pray strategy. So I think it'll probably ultimately work out in the end. But yeah, for now, I think I just top 100. Honestly.
Yeah, I completely agree with you there, Waff. I mean, I think we've just seen by the quality of runes that have come out, like, I think it's a lot cheaper to mint runes than people thought, just with low sats available. Sorry, etch runes, not mint. But yeah, I mean, there's already so many runes out there. I think we're on like 7,000 or 8,000 right now. And I thought they were going to be harder to mint out. I didn't realize how many were going to come right at the jump like that. I guess people just, pre-mined those blocks early or pre-etched leading up to that 840,000 block. But yeah, I agree. I don't think it's going to be the case. Trevor came in super well prepared. To your point, all props to him on that. But now that the dust has settled a bit, I don't really see a scenario in which the first 1,000 runes have a premium. It just seems like there's so many of them. And again, like, I was really under the impression that we were going to see some art and some beautiful like art, as in, wow, this is a hilarious concept. This is so strategic and well thought out. And I think we just saw low effort shit for like the most part of it. Maybe 95% of the runes, I would say, are uninteresting. And again, I'm not trying to be a hater. I'm just like always try to be objective and honest with you guys on the show of like, this is where my head's at after seeing it all. So I do think top 100 will probably have a premium once the dust settles. Still a lot of stuff in the top 100 hasn't minted out. So I don't think there's any reason to rush to mint out any projects in the top 100 just because they're there. But zooming out 2 to 3 to 4 years, that's probably where I would see that premium coming in, or whenever there is a huge, market inflow into runes, then you might see that. But even then, once that inflow comes, I don't think the 500th rune project is going to get a premium just because it's sub 1,000. It might help if it's a great project, but I don't think on its own merit being early really matters.
Yeah, I would just be mindful of anything that was pre-mined. And then I guess my one last note on runes, and then I think we can move on to Merlin, is Satoshi. There was a little bit of FUD. I think it was like Jack Lou. There was like rumor that he deployed it, and then that made the price go down. So this could actually be a good buy opportunity. It's probably more likely than not that he didn't deploy it or etch it. So there's a little bit of FUD around Satoshi. I think that's what caused the price decrease. So it's probably a good chance to buy it now. Because you know what, I could see it over $10 in like a week or two, and then we could look back at this time right now where it's sitting in the $4 range, and we're wondering to ourselves like, why didn't we get it at $4? It's Satoshi Nakamoto.
Who is this Lou guy? I did not hear the FUD around that.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know him that much. I just saw like his Twitter profile, and I think he's grifted in the past. So people, and because of the 20% pre-mine, and I guess for his reputation in the past, people started fighting it. He had to put a picture up that I think it's the same symbol as the Satoshi Nakamoto, I guess, Twitter page. So people started like connecting the dots and saying, "Oh, he's the one that probably etched it," and then the price went down. So I think when there's FUD, usually it's unwarranted. I think in this case it's probably unsubstantiated. At least it's at the very minimum it's unsubstantiated. So that could be a potential buying opportunity due to the FUD.
Yeah, definitely to that point, did not know the background on that, so appreciate that, Waf. And definitely just as a disclaimer, as always, BossDawgs is NFA. We're just people trading ordinals. I definitely try to be as on top of it as I can be, but a lot of stuff does slip through the cracks. So I know I mentioned being bullish on Satoshi. I do personally have some bags, have minted a decent amount and been buying on these dips. But as always, trade accordingly, do some research before you hop into anything. But even if there is FUD on the founder, it's just a matter of like, it is number 7 rune. Again, don't think premiums are that relevant, but like top 10, that's pretty good. And then the name is just like only one person's going to get that name right in the space, and that's as good as it gets in terms of names. So I think that's a pretty easy one. Not a ton of downside there. IMO. All right. So you talked about runes. Go ahead, Waf. All you.
Well, no, I was gonna say, so we could just go from one FUD to another. Let's talk about Merlin Chain. I mean, I think people have been disappointed. The unstaking has not happened yet. I think the token price is down significantly. I want to say, I think I last saw it at 90 cents, 95 cents, more or less. So what do you got to say about that?
Dude, don't love it. I'll say that. I mean, I think it's fair. I do have some shout outs to people who warned me after I already staked, and I was like, oh, fuck. There's definitely stuff in hindsight that is kind of sus about it. It's right. Like the founder is only partially doxed. He didn't want to fully dox himself. The fact that it's not an L2, but it was toted as an L2. And just all the stuff leading up to the halving, like it would have made so much sense for them to unstake everything and make people get their assets back before the halving, so they'd have liquidity before fees got crazy. And I know they mentioned it a little bit today on Wake and Jake, but it's like, what is this founder up to where they're pushing it back? And they said to people, you'll be able to unstake via the halving or at the halving. Now they're saying 2 to 5 days without any update. It's like, did you guys not already build the mechanism? So hoping it's just a time rug and nothing more, where we're not going to see those assets again. But it's scary. Like, I understand why the token's dropping, because this seems to be a really crucial miscommunication. Definitely a lack of communication on their end. Lots of people have a ton of funds, saved and pooled up there. And yeah, the snapshot for runestones happened, right? Like, a lot of people staked their runestones, their pups. Like, there's a ton of assets that are in Merlin that entitled you to airdrops, and now it's just a huge question mark of, are you going to see the airdrop? Are you going to get the tokens? Are you going to get your NFTs or your ordinals that you were airdropped? Like, no one really knows. We're just kind of sitting here and waiting. And then on top of that, I think the whole incentive to stake was probably to gain those Merlin points. So that coming in softer than expected didn't really do anything to help holders and give them any reason to celebrate. So we'll see. There's a lot of FUD for them to overcome. But I think once people can get their assets back, it'll be a lot more clear of if Merlin's going to recover or not. What are your thoughts?
Okay, so I think definitely a little bit bearish on the L2 narrative now with runes kind of taking over, but I don't have that level of concern as far as getting back my assets that are staked, because if you look at all these other Bitcoin layer twos, they're all also side chains. They're not L2s, and they all have this same mechanism of staking your assets for the token. So I just think this is more of like impatience, a little bit of, I want to say, miscalculation by the team. Like, I think you want to err on the side of caution, especially with like this much of assets that you're holding on behalf of users. I'd rather see a team under promise and over deliver than to over promise and under deliver. And like right now, they're kind of falling into that category where they missed the deadline around the halving, which is a massive miss, right? Like, you should know whether or not you're going to make that deadline or not, and communicate that beforehand if you know you're going to miss that, right? And then maybe offer like an additional incentive to everyone, for missing that. And that way you kind of allay people's fears, because even if I go all the way back to February when I first made the decision to stake, there was that decision. Like, oh, this is kind of scary, because most Bitcoin users do not want to part with their Bitcoin, and they're kind of like inherently anti layer two, right? It's kind of like not your keys, not your Bitcoin. That's a mantra that's been like spouted out for forever for Bitcoin maxis. So to take that trust and then have it delayed, I think it's just a bad look, because you're not dealing with Ethereum users, you're not dealing with I want to say all degens. You're dealing with like kind of like original Bitcoin users here. I mean, obviously there's a mix, but you got a lot of Bitcoin users who typically do not allow Bitcoin to leave their wallet, and so I think that's where they miscalculated.
Yeah, totally agree with you there, Waf. And, we'll see, hoping everyone can get their liquidity back on time. I'm definitely just like, damn, dude, I got sidelined hard on some stuff that I'm trying to do right now, and definitely want to get one of those quantum cats before the price runs up, maybe to farm a little blast gold or something. So we will see. Definitely not ideal, but, hopefully it's only a couple more days, then we'll get going again. I'm still holding on to my Merlin airdrop just because I see like usually the pattern with airdrops is you get a big sell off initially, people buy, and then it goes crazy. So hoping they're able to overcome this FUD one way, shape, or form. And then hopefully the token will keep going from there once they get this major minting mechanism all sorted out. But yeah, I think that was pretty much it on my end, WAF, but happy to talk, more runes, ordinals, anything else. And then audience, if you're listening in, let me know what you guys want to talk about here at all. I am really curious what you guys thought about runes. This is just WAF and I giving our opinions, but want to hear from people who made money, people who lost money, everything in between. Like, talk to me about runes. If you want to, come off mute anytime. You're welcome to give your take. You can tag WAF or I in the ordinals chat or VC if you have questions or want to talk. If you want to throw me some funny ticker suggestions or names that you want to see etched, let's see it. But yeah, that's it for me, I think. WAF, what about you?
Yeah, I would just say, like, looking back, you have like this runes narrative, you had the L2 narratives, and right now, without like the mass volume that you would expect in a bull run, which we're not quite there. We just had the halving. We've had like the spring run. We haven't had the real bull run yet. That's when we'll see everything cook. But right now, I don't think there's enough action to have them both cook at the same time. And so right now it's runes time. So everything is a little bit siloed, right? It's runes time. Ordinals take a hit. L2s take a hit. And there's like a rotation. But I think we're gonna reach a point where we're gonna see all three kind of rise together. Just we're just not there yet.
Yeah, I totally agree, Waf. I mean, still just looking at like the pocket of the market that we're in. I think another is just nuance to all of this is it still really is like right in the midst of all of this war threat. And again, shout out to Wake and Jake. Love the fact that we're on the same day now. I just feel like it's great to get in the morning and then the afternoon. Hearing Jake talk about macros always sets a great perspective. And I know there is sort of like a lot of chop in the markets right now, a big will it, won't it, in terms of Bitcoin continuing to move forward post halving. So yeah, I think you have to keep in context that a few weeks before runes, it was all systems go. Bitcoin was looking really strong. Ordinals were crushing, like just crushing. So all eyes were on ordinals, and I'm sure if we didn't get some of these tensions and uncertainty, I'm sure runes would have gone a little bit differently in terms of just people slinging out the gate and sending these sat fees higher than they already did. But I do think just where we're at in the market is we've cooled off a little from the bull. Prices are recovering a little bit, but stuff like Solana is still down probably over 20%. Don't know the exact math, but it's down a decent bit from its highs. Bitcoin's still down a bit from its highs, ordinal projects as well. So like the whole market's still taking some time to shake off the dust and recover. And that's probably not the best time to introduce a brand new paradigm to the market. So I think it's going to take a little extra time to digest these kinds of things. But to your point, wait until there's that spring bull run or summer or whatever it is. And I'm sure we'll be looking at it through a brand new set of eyes.
Yeah, I totally agree. I mean, you look at Bitcoin price this past week; it's up like 5% or so. I mean, 66,500. Not that far off from the all-time high. I mean, like a 10% increase, and we're at the all-time high. So we're right there. It does seem kind of quiet. It seems like it's slowly creeping up. The halving just happened, right? So like it takes time to digest the fact that the inflation level of Bitcoin entering the market each day is now only 450 Bitcoins. We still have a ton of inflows into the ETFs. It looks like Grayscale created a new fund, a new ETF with less fees, so there should be less outflows from Grayscale. And then I believe we have like Hong Kong coming on board with an ETF next week, and I think they're forecasting at least 250 million off the top right on day one as far as inflows. So still a ton of bullish factors ahead of us. They're not all behind us, but we did have the major one being the halving, and from my past experience, like the halving is never priced in. So I think we have a lot of room to run.
Absolutely.
I guess if we could go to questions, if there's any, because I think that's all I had as well, Ross.
Yeah, let's go to questions if we can. Audience, once again, come off mute, throw a holla out if you just want to chat and say what up. Appreciate all the shouts in chat as always, guys. Waf and I love doing this. And yeah, Waf, I love talking to you, bro. I'm so glad that you were one of the people who brought me into ordinals in the first place, and were just super helpful getting started and answering questions and stuff like that. But I mean, dude, it's like always great just touching base on Mondays, setting up the week and hearing it. So I thought I was going to be in VC all weekend. I was just like so laser focused on runestones, and I think I got lost in my own little world to some extent. That's kind of what was going on with just setting up the node and troubleshooting. And at one point it was like, I need to just tunnel vision into this. But it's really fun now just pulling back the curtain and be like, dude, like what runes are we minting? So always a pleasure hosting this with you, dude. So fun.
Dude, likewise, man. I love doing these shows. And also, I was the same thing for me. I was troubleshooting my node and trying to figure out what to do. And I thought I'd be in VC the whole weekend. And it turns out I was in my little bubble with a couple of DM chats like, hey, what are we doing? But I really wasn't as active as I thought I was going to be initially, because it was just, it was like kind of hectic, It was really hectic.
Yeah, absolutely.
Did anyone actually use their node? I would love to know.
Dude, I did not use my node. I couldn't get the the right command to mint for the life of me, and then I wound up buying one of those Wizard of Orbs, and I got the Rune Blaster, so I was like minting off of the Rune Blaster, and then I had Luminex up, I had Genie up, so I was like minting through 3 other options, but not my node. Go figure. But this time I did not delete it. I'm gonna keep it on my computer.
I used
I used it exclusively.
Oh, awesome.
Oh, big shot over here. Watch out.
Sir, I'll have you know that I actually have a 31 waist, and that's not a brag. That is to show you not a big shot. I guess I just doxed my pant size, but if anyone wants to send me some Levi's, I'm not going to say no. But yeah, I love the node personally. I mean, I thought it was just cool. I think it helped me slow down a little bit because I really had to analyze like, that was kind of part of my strategy going into it. I was talking about it leading up to Runes and some of the chat sessions that we had. Like, just slowing down really helped. I did see a few people online and Twitter who were just like, damn, I got wrecked on Runes and lost all this money. And I'm kind of just like, how? I mean, I'm not saying I don't understand how, but it's like when you go into a high gas environment and just fire away, I think you're prone to a lot of mistakes. So if there was one thing that I think the node really helped me do, it was just like I needed to make sure the tickers were perfect, and then was just, staring at mempool being like, what is the ideal gas for me to get in on this? Did the pseudo market cap calculations. Appreciate the tip there. We'll have to just go to OKX to take a look at it. But yeah, I mean, I was just like forced to take an extra set of eyes and breaths before sending anything through the node. So I think it actually paid dividends in the long run that I was forced to use it. Or I wasn't forced to, but that I ended up using.
Oh yeah, I had some mistakes on Friday night as well. Like I was minting Satoshi, and then I really liked it. And to your point earlier that you had kind of like all night to mint it, so I sent a few at like lower sats, thinking it'll go through in a few blocks, and they just never made it. They just never made it. So I wasted. I want to say I wasted probably a good 0.1 on failed mints, but overall the night was still profitable.
Nice, dude. I love to hear that. Yeah, I think I'm in a similar boat. I sent a few on Satoshi that were a little too high, just given that like I wanted it early, and then realized like, oh, there's actually so much time for this to mint out. So probably could have gotten it a little bit cheaper. Definitely still up on the mint. Like I said, I'm still buying secondary for over mint now because I'm believing it long term. Wanko is the big miss, dude. Everything else, I was like pretty happy. Got some tickers, Elsa. Got meme economics. Faded some of the like the random ones. I know some people minted like Casey's mom has got it going on. I was just like, I don't really care. That's fine. I definitely get it. But yeah, I think for the most part, it was a successful time if you were prepared and did your prep work. Certainly was not the explosive wealth generation machine I thought it was going to be, but I don't think that means it's a flop and that there's no opportunities. If anything, I think it's like, similar to Blast right now and farming for Blast Gold, there's a ton of people entering that ecosystem and refocusing, even though a lot of people left Blast after the first week with it being not as interesting. So like, if you've done this much work to get prepped for Runes, you'd understand it, you know what they are, keep your eyes on the space, right? Keep monitoring Luminex. If nothing else, like that'll just give you a good heads up of what's going on in the market. And that's what I do like about the Bitcoin is like it mints out slower for the most part. You'll see a few projects that mint out in 2 blocks, but just keep up a tab, periodically check it throughout the day. Most mints are going to take a few blocks to hours to mint out anyway. So like we'll catch some new ones together as MVHQ.
Yeah, I mean, just don't let other people's success like take any joy away from your own. I would say like we are really early. I know that's like an overused phrase, but if you're here listening, yeah, you're early. You're gonna make it.
What's up, everybody, man? I almost missed the show. I just walked in at the end, and I was so excited about it this week for it. I was so excited for it. I want to talk about Runes, man.
Oh, Jinzo, let's go. What do you got on your mind, man?
Not much. I was just gonna say you're right. I mean, it's a mix of exactly what both of you just said. It's a mix of like ordinals and BRC20s when they first came out and how they went kind of stale, and you know what I mean. They didn't have too much action. And it was like a slow cooks across the board for both those ecosystems. I think we're gonna see the same thing here, and it does remind me a lot of Blast 2. That's another thing I was thinking myself too. Is that it reminds me of how people had a bad taste in their mouth with Blast and they got wrecked early, so they took weeks to come back in. I think we're going to see the same thing with Runes. I know Blast had has like incentives in place to get people to come back, but runes do too. Like, I mean, it's Bitcoin. You can't fade Bitcoin. And we've learned that by now. So when the timeline is max coping and being negative, that's when you should be looking at what to buy. But I think, again, we were ready for it in here. Most of us in here were ready for how it was going to go down, and I think we did a good job of like outlining it. And I think we're really on point with what was going to happen. The main takeaway was we prepared people. We told them not to go in if they didn't know how to gas or from the beginning, and you know what I mean. We told them to pick the right tickers, the early tickers, and I think a lot of people listened. Others degen too. It's fine. You know, people are taking flyers at higher mint numbers, but I mean, we were right across the board. If we stuck to anything in the top 30, I think later, like in a few months from now, we're going to be okay. If you started degenning on any random thing, well, you basically played it like a soul shitcoin, and you're like, oh, maybe I'll play this one for a fast pump, and those pumps often didn't come. And the reason for that was because we were seeing over 3,000 different runes on day one. How many of them do you really expect to do well? It was just everybody was being pulled in every single direction, and you can't expect to just have that much success minting random shit if the ticker wasn't nice, if it wasn't from the right community. You know what I mean? There was a lot of things to consider. My strategy was that I just minted 5 or 6 different ones, and it was all really low IDs. And for me, it was I don't want to play the flip game too much because I know it's a bit of a mess and gas is early, but I'm going to hold on to those and see what they could become a bit later on.
Yeah, I agree with you, Jinzo. I think what I saw, especially that I want to point out, is the confluence of different communities like drawing the same conclusions on what coins were the winners, and it played out exactly as people said it was going to play out. Like early on, people called out Satoshi and meme economics, and like they were the clear ones to mint. And then it kind of like throughout the night was a similar thing. Whether I was here in MVHQ chat or like in sitting in Ninja or even just like seeing what they were doing and in Wizard of Ord because I was playing with the Rune Blaster. There just seemed to be like a confluence of communities like basically drawing the same conclusions, I want to say. So I think it just goes to show you like, you know, we're as sharp as you know, anyone else that's out there.
Yeah, and on that point, like if you want to compare it to something we saw recently, like Mogcoin or Whiff or Pepe, people were talking about them for months or even let's say weeks on the timeline, and everybody was ignoring them. But the right people kept hammering away at that drum. They kept talking about it. If you're gonna keep fading what the consensus is on KOLs or whatever influencers talking about, eventually that coin is gonna pump because they don't stop spreading it and talking about it and making noise about it. Eventually, it's just gonna have no more sellers in it and it's gonna move. So if you have those that are the consensus top picks, I mean, you shouldn't be thinking short term, thinking, oh, it didn't move yet, let me sell. You're probably selling before the big pump. I think things on Bitcoin sometimes take a lot of time to move, but when they move violently. We've seen it time and time again. So I don't fade Bitcoin. I find that I feel more comfortable just sitting on my bag on Bitcoin than I do on any other ecosystem because I know that that's where the money is, and I know that there's a provenance and a kind of inscription number, let's say, that's going to back what you're saying. Like you know that if you have a top 10 coin or a top 20 coin, like inscribed, it's going to be like those 1,000 first ordinals. Eventually, they're going to get pulled up. Each and every one that sort of has a good community rallying around it.
Yeah, I would say also like my experience with BRCs and also with runes is like if you mint and you're kind of like in an insta loss, I would not dump it because like this thing turns around before you know it, and next thing you know, it's up 2x, 3x, and you sold it prematurely. So if you minted something, you're bag holding it right now, we're only a couple days in, I would sit on it. Like I would not be looking to dump it because at any moment it could just double, triple in price.
Yeah, and just that's what it is. It's just hold on. It's so early. There's so many people, so many quick flippers. You have to understand something about runes. They were so loud. Everybody was so loud about runes that it literally attracted every, for lack of a better word, cockroach of the space and brought them all into Bitcoin to flip. So all these like jeeters and quick flippers, they all attack the same things at the same time. What do you expect to happen? It's a bunch of flippers. So we didn't get that usual, usually you have something that comes out and the early guys make money because they're early. And then eventually the flippers come in because they saw everybody's cooking hard on that. And then it's impossible to make money. Well, we took away that early stuff. We just all jumped in on it at the same time. And when you have 99% flippers, what do you think happens? You know what I mean? It's obviously everybody's going to get wrecked. We've seen it time and time again. So we didn't have that slow that slow pump that we usually do with like we said, ordinal. I keep saying ordinals and BRCs, but they're a perfect example. It's the same ecosystem. We just had everybody hop in at the same time. We had crazy hype at the same time, and everybody paying high fees to get something that might not do so well instantly. I mean, it's just normal. Everybody was doing it.
I agree. The spectators have left, and now if you stick around, then this is like where the real money gets made. I mean, it's really no different than, there's a big party at a club on a Friday night, and then people go home, and then there's some people that show up on Saturday, and then some people show up on Sunday, and then there's Monday, and those people that stick around kind of they're the OGs of the space, and they're there after all the spectators have left. And I think it's just a similar vibe. I mean, everybody was ready for the halving and runes on Friday night. I mean, it was everybody. By the next day, half the people were gone. By Sunday, probably another half. So this week, you'll see only like the true believers kind of still trading and monitoring the space.
Yeah, I mean, do we sound like moon boys? Sure, for sure. Someone on the outside might think we sound like moon boys and have a bunch of hopium or whatever. But wow, we've had these conversations over and over again with Bitcoin ecosystem, so I actually feel very comfortable with it. I don't like. Maybe I'm wrong. Who knows? There's a small chance I'm wrong. Right? There's always a chance that you're wrong, and the current that runes go to zero. But I mean, when you've done so much, like when you've been so like involved in the ordinal space or Bitcoin space, and you see what happens there and how things operate there, and you feel comfortable with something. I mean, I feel comfortable with my bags. I just feel good about them. I know that we haven't seen one single rune go to 1 billion market cap yet. I know we haven't seen one single like exchange listing, or we have for Satoshi, but nothing major yet. I mean, when the dust starts settling and the front runners start really proving themselves and showing themselves, it's going to happen. Look at all these big names that run these big runes. They're not just going to be like, okay, cool, runes are done. We can let them, you know what I mean? That's it. There's nothing else to do on them. It's done. No, Bitcoin ecosystem devs and stuff are some of the biggest builders I've ever seen. And they really, really put passion into it. And if you notice, a lot of them are spending money to make these runes happen. They're not making money off of you. They're actually spending all their, they're putting their whole portfolio into making sure they drop their runes, or making sure that the runes come to market and people are able to buy them, or putting big money in so they could have the first or third or fourth or fifth rune to come out. I mean, they've really staked more than just their reputation and their wording on the line. They staked a lot of their personal value on the line to make this work. So do you think they're just going to let up and let this, oh, it's cool, runes are out, we did our job, it's the day one, and okay, we're on the third day now, and that's it, there's nothing else to do? No. They're going to keep working on this.
Yeah, I mean, some people airdrop tokens to people when the sats were crazy high. So it goes to show you, like, they're not here to make money. They already got money, and they have a vision, and they're executing it and paying for it, like, no matter the cost. And then what you said also is key, is being comfortable. I think like your bankroll management and how you play these things is critical in allowing you to stay in a position. If you over leverage or overexpose yourself, you kind of put yourself in a box, and you need something to go up right away. You need to get liquid, and you can't let something play out. So I think you need to like right size your positions all the time, so that you could feel comfortable whether the price goes down or up, and you could stay in that position and see it through, and basically let your conviction play out. I think that's key. A lot of times, most people's biggest mistake is not letting their conviction follow through, because they were a little too impatient.
Yeah, I agree. We've seen it so many times. It's hard too, because I guess when you overinvest, I'm sure a lot of people really overinvested. I mean, you want to get out, right? So, but that's why you sell your initial. Doesn't mean don't sell anything, but sell your initial. At least take some out. Like, I know right now maybe a lot of things are down, or you know what I mean, a break even. I get that. But there's always things you can do if you don't feel comfortable. If you don't feel comfortable, it's because you're way too invested.
Yeah, I mean, I can't even say that like enough, because I've been on both sides of that one, where you get a little bit too greedy, and you overplay it, and then you kind of need the price to go up. Whereas if you take out initials, or you don't go in as big, you could, like, you don't even think about it. Like, you don't want to be thinking about every position you're in. I mean, I don't have to think about it daily. Then I know, I'm not stressing it, and I can hold it as long as I want to hold it.
Yeah, I'm sure like it's happened to you too in the past, where like you try to have conviction about something and you just end up cheating it because you're like, it's not moving like I want. There's something else happening. Like you lose your attention span gets pulled left and right, and you end up selling a moon bag that. Well, you sell a moon bag or whatever, a bag that if you would have just held that and done nothing else, she would have been fine. So I'm trying so hard not to make that mistake again after looking back at things like Pepe coin and Pepe and all these whiffs and everything that I had and just like did not hold the moon bag or hold any bag at all of after selling initially.
Yeah, it always goes back to you feel like you're too late and you didn't realize how early you were. So I think this recognize that we're still early and that'll help you hold. All right, we got anybody else? If not, I think we could call it a show. Unless Ross, you got something else?
Nah, well, I'm all good, man. But big shout out to the audience who tunes in every week to listen to us, man. Definitely really appreciate it, especially today after Runes. You know, you guys have all just been awesome coming out, showing support, and I hope it's as informative it is for you guys as it is me. You know, I'm lucky enough to get to speak to you personally, WAF, and I feel like I get one-on-one guidance through a lot of these things from hosting office hours and talking to you. But I mean, it's sick, and these shows are for you, MVHQ fam. We have them for you guys to get an insight on these markets, and if at any point you want to jump in on the conversation, give your takes too, we always love to hear it. But just thankful that you guys are finding value in this one way, shape, or form, and come out each week to listen in. So appreciate you guys.
Yeah, definitely. If it wasn't for you guys, there would be no show. So just like what Ross said, always happy to have these shows, talk about these things that we're getting into. And as always, NFA, do your own research, but we could always tell you what we're doing.
All right. Well, it seems like another good episode in the books. As always, WAF, thank you so much, man, and I'll see you next Monday.
Yeah, see you next week.